Tonight on Denver7 News at 6.
I do worry that there's going to be another hiccup.
The next possible disruption to Colorado's unemployment system.
The quicker Congress acts, the better.
Plus, vaccine manufacturers ramp up production.
A criminal investigation into Von Miller lands on the district attorney's desk.
A snowshoer spends 30 hours lost in the cold and lives to talk about it.
Colorado lawmakers cry foul on wolves.
And the state requests a pass on standardized tests.
The same reasons that we canceled the test last year still exist this year.
Good evening and thanks for watching Denver7. I'm Andrew Heal.
And I'm Shannon Ogden. Glad you're here tonight. 4 days into phase 2, and we already have another reason to worry that Coloradans will not receive their unemployment benefits.
As Denver7's Liz Gilardi reports, the people who have waited the longest may be left waiting again.
So it was very frustrating and very scary.
When we first met Melissa Hickey earlier this month, she was waiting. She exhausted her federal unemployment benefits and couldn't file a new claim until last weekend.
I was owed 8 weeks, and they did pay me for the full 8 weeks.
She's part of a group referred to as Phase 2. On Saturday, Colorado rolled out federal benefits to this group, meaning people who hadn't received a check in weeks could finally submit a claim. They were forced to wait while the state reprogrammed its computer system.
Since we launched Phase 2, we've paid out more than $254 million in benefits.
Not everyone is as lucky as Melissa. Kathy Byrne also requested a payment, including 8 weeks of back pay.
So I'm still waiting for 5 weeks of pay, and I have no idea how to get a hold of anyone to find out why I haven't gotten it.
Officials with the Colorado Department of Labor and Employment know some people are having issues with their claims, and some payments are being delayed.
So if someone's in phase 2, but they did not receive all their back pay for those weeks, don't panic at this point in time. We are working on a fix, and some of those fixes are anticipated to be in by this week.
After a lengthy gap in federal benefits, another gap could be looming. Congress has yet to pass a new stimulus package that would extend federal unemployment, currently set to expire on March 14th. Even when that stimulus bill is passed, the state will have to reprogram its computer system, and people like Melissa or Kathy could end up waiting all over again.
I think the takeaway here is one, the quicker Congress acts, the better. The more they keep it simple, the better.
Liz Gilardi, Denver7.
For the next 2 weeks, the Biden administration is thinking small. From tomorrow through early March, the Paycheck Protection Program is limited to businesses with fewer than 20 employees. The process will be open to people without citizenship. Business owners can go through their bank, local lender, or call up the Small Business Administration for assistance. And if you run into trouble, well, tell them about it.
There are sometimes people who say, I got frustrated with the process and this is what happened to me and I just quit. And these are the things I want to know. I want to hear these so I can say, wait a minute, what happened? Okay, here's what you can do. Here's what you could have done different. But now that you know, here's where you can go. And I think all of my team is like that. Every time we go into a business, we're like, oh, thank God you're still open.
And one way to express your frustrations and receive help in return is with an email to coloradodo@sba.gov.
Moderna and Pfizer pledged today to ramp up production of the coronavirus vaccine. Pfizer's CEO promised Congress that doses would go from 4 to 5 million per week to 13 million a week by the middle of March. Moderna said it is on track to deliver 100 million doses by the end of March. They hope to be doling out 40 million a month by April. Both companies also say they are prepared to tackle any troublesome variants that arise.
And to date, we've seen no real-world evidence that suggests a significant reduction in protection provided by our current vaccine. However, we're preparing to respond quickly and hope to initiate a study to investigate the effectiveness of a third booster of our vaccine in trial participants who have already received 2 doses.
We're in the process of scaling up manufacturing for clinical trial right now to test whether or not a variant vaccine booster is useful.
Johnson & Johnson is likely to receive FDA approval for its vaccine this weekend. That company has pledged 20 million doses by the end of March.
Jeffco Schools expects to make the decision on in-person learning by the end of this week. Several schools in that district currently are on a hybrid model.
The Parker Police Department has turned the results of its investigation into Von Miller over to the DA's office. Now, neither the police nor the DA's office will say what charges were in fact recommended, although police did describe the investigation as extensive. A source previously told Denver7 the case involves claims of domestic abuse.
Aurora will create an independent investigation body in the wake of the Elijah McClain report. Now, as we have reported, a panel found that officers had no right to stop McClain because they had no evidence he either committed a crime or intended to commit a crime. Police Chief Vanessa Wilson appears to agree with that assessment.
Giving officers that opportunity to take a moment to slow things down, to watch what they see happening and not to solely rely on what a caller says. The report talked about implicit bias. I've been talking about implicit bias since I took over as the chief of police. And I believe that we all have it. And I want to ensure that if a community member is calling someone in as a suspicious person, that is never due to the color of their skin or the clothing that they're wearing.
Chief Wilson was asked repeatedly today whether the officers involved can, should, or will be punished internally. She declined to answer, citing ongoing investigations.
Tanya Boy's attorneys are prepping for two cases tonight, one that she's already been charged in and another far more serious matter coming down the pike. Prosecutors say Boy sold pot with her younger brother Kevin, who is charged in the murders of the Giol family, whose home was set on fire. Today, attorneys representing her in the drug case requested a delay so they can familiarize themselves with the arson case as well. Prosecutors first revealed earlier this month that Tanya Boy is likely to be implicated in the murders.
Well, it took 8 hours of searching, but first responders were able to rescue a snowshoer who disappeared into the Boulder County backcountry. Jennifer Cornell found 200 feet from the trail yesterday afternoon. She had been there since the previous morning.
I got turned around, lost track of time, and realized her situation, was able to break off some tree branches, make herself somewhat of a bed to lie down on, stay off the snow a little bit. Spent some portion of the night there, up off the snow, hopefully out of the wind, which will really make a big difference. And then at some point she woke up and saw some lights, or at least thought she saw some lights, and started to head towards those, so downhill, down into a gully. And apparently that's where we found her, was down in that.
Wow. According to her sister, Cornell's hands are frostbitten, and she will need to stay in the hospital a little bit longer. Otherwise, she's okay.
3 Colorado lawmakers say that only the counties that voted to reintroduce gray wolves should have the privilege of living with them. Well, as it stands today, that wouldn't give them much space to roam on the west slope. Many of the votes that allowed this initiative to pass came from the Denver Metro, although Larimer, Summit, Pitkin, and San Juan counties were in favor of bringing wolves back.
We have required Colorado to count all ballots on election night has died in committee. Sponsor Paul Lundeen saw this coming and said the proposal really was intended as a springboard for conversation, but Democrats seemed ready to talk about something else. Well, the Biden administration wants schools to move forward with standardized testing.
Colorado lawmakers are asking for a pass. Denver7 political reporter Megan Lopez studied up on the issue and has tonight's story.
For weeks, Colorado educators have been calling on state lawmakers,
CMAS testing should be postponed until next school year,
asking for state standardized tests to be canceled once again this year due to the pandemic. That call answered in the form of a bipartisan bill.
The same reasons that we canceled the test last year still exist this year.
But this week, the U.S. Department of Education released a letter encouraging states to move forward with testing. The letter did allow for some flexibility, saying states could offer a shortened version, give them remotely, or extend the testing window. Bill co-sponsors say none of those options are possible in Colorado.
The test product that we have here in Colorado cannot be shortened. We have been instructed by our test administrator that the CMAS test cannot be given remotely.
And extending the testing window means the state won't have the results until the fall.
The state budget will have already passed by then. The School Finance Act will have already passed by then. Opportunities for summer school will have already gone by.
Still, the federal government and numerous state lawmakers insist testing is important.
If we go about the process of just kind of eliminating the assessment for this year, we'll never know the progress that we made as a result of COVID. We know that there was education loss. That's a given. The issue really is from here, how do we correct going forward, and how much of a correction did we make? We owe that to our students.
So the state bill will offer local assessments as an alternative. For schools, the answer on testing is still a ways off. If the bill passes, the governor will have to approve it first, and he's already shown some skepticism. Then the federal government will have the final say. Megan Lopez, Denver7.
Coming coming up.
I said, you got to be kidding me. You told me during COVID nothing was going to be sold.
A billion-dollar industry cashes in on struggling Coloradans.
I'm rebuying everything from kids' clothes to couches to beds, everything.
It was a beautiful warm day today. By this time tomorrow, it'll be snowing.
And Dierks Bentley drops by Denver.
It's almost like old times.